The quaint restaurant nestled in the heart of the city was a haven for those seeking comfort food and a warm atmosphere. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the large windows, a gentle figure entered. Walter Harris, a 78-year-old veteran with silver hair and a gentle demeanor, made his way inside, his cane tapping softly against the wooden floor. The familiar scent of rosemary and garlic wafted through the air, stirring memories of his late wife, Margaret. They had frequented this restaurant, sharing laughter and stories over plates of her favorite pasta. Walter paused for a moment, taking in the ambiance that felt so intertwined with his past. He chose a table by the window, a spot they often occupied. The sunlight illuminated the empty chair across from him, and for a brief moment, he could almost hear her laughter echoing in his ear. He smiled wistfully, settling into the cozy nook, his fingers gently tracing the edge of the table as he recalled the countless meals shared. Meanwhile, Jason, a 24-year-old waiter, with an ambition that often overshadowed his patience, bustled through the restaurant. He was in a hurry, darting between tables, balancing plates and glasses with the grace of someone who was still learning the rope. His youthful energy was palpable, but so was his impatience. He approached Walter's table with a rushed demeanor, his brow slightly furrowed as he glanced at the time. "Good evening, sir," Jason said, barely making eye contact. "I just wanted to let you know that the chicken parmesan is off the menu tonight. We ran out of supplies, so you might want to choose something else." Walter looked up, a flicker of surprise in his kind blue eyes. "Oh, that's unfortunate." "It was my favorite," he replied softly, his voice steady despite the disappointment that settled in his chest. He had come here, hoping for a taste of nostalgia, but he could see that Jason was already preoccupied with the next table. "Right, so, what do you want?" Jason asked, tapping his pen against the notepad impatiently. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, clearly eager to move on. Walter took a breath, trying to muster the same patience he had learned over many years. "I'll have the spaghetti with marinara, please," he said, his tone calm, though he felt the young waiter's indifference weigh heavily on his heart. "Sure," Jason replied curtly, jotting down the order with a flick of his wrist. "I'll be right back." He turned away before Walter could say another word, his focus shifting to a nearby table of young diners who were animatedly debating their meal choice. As Walter sat there, slowly stirring his food when it arrived, he became aware of the discomfort of the other patrons around him. A couple at a nearby table exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of sympathy and irritation toward Jason's brusque manner. Walter, ever the gentleman, chose to focus on his meal, savoring each bite as he recalled Margaret's smile whenever he indulged in his favorite dish. After finishing his meal, Walter took a moment to reflect. He pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket and wrote a note, his hand steady despite the tremors of age. He folded it carefully and placed it under his plate, leaving a little extra money as a tip. As he rose to leave, he cast one last glance around the restaurant, feeling a strange sense of connection to the people who shared this space with him. With a soft sigh, Walter made his way to the door, moving slowly yet purposefully, his heart heavy with the memories of the past, but lightened by the hope that perhaps kindness could still flourish in unexpected ways. As he stepped outside, the cool evening air wrapped around him, and he felt a sense of peace envelop him, unaware of the impact his presence and his note would soon have on the young waiter. As Sarah wiped down the table where Walter had just sat, her fingers brushed against the folded piece of paper he had left behind. Curious, she picked it up and unfolded it, her heart quickening as she read the handwritten note. "Dear young man," it began, the careful script revealing the wisdom of a lifetime. "In a world that seems to rush by, I urge you to pause and reflect on the importance of kindness. Each person who walks through this door carries a story, a history, and often a burden. Patience is a gift that we give not just to others, but to ourselves. Remember, your attitude can light up someone's day or darken it. Choose wisely." Sarah's throat tightened as she spoke the words silently to herself. She could feel the weight of Walter's message settling in her heart. It was as if the note had reached out to her, urging her to reconsider her own approach as the manager. "This is beautiful," she murmured, glancing around the restaurant. The hustle and bustle of the evening crowd continued, yet for a moment, time seemed to stand still. Just then, Jason, the ambitious young waiter, sauntered over, a look of impatience still etched on his face. "What are you reading?" he asked, not bothering to mask his disinterest. "This note left by Mr. Harris," Sarah replied, her voice tinged with emotion. "It's a reminder of the kindness we should show our customers. It's powerful." Jason raised an eyebrow, his skepticism evident. "It's just a note. People come and go, and they won't remember us after they leave." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah countered, her tone firm yet gentle. "Every interaction matters. We have the opportunity to make a difference, however small it may seem. This note is a call to be better." Jason shrugged, brushing off her words. "Yeah, sure. I'll think about it," he said dismissively, turning to walk away. But as he did, a pang of guilt gnawed at him. He had heard Sarah's words, the weight of his own indifference hung heavy on his conscience. In the following days, the note lingered in Jason's mind like a persistent echo. He found himself replaying the encounter with Walter over and over, the old man's gentle demeanor contrasting sharply with his own hurried attitude. "What does it matter?" he had thought, but the truth was beginning to dawn on him. "Hey, Jason! You're not going to just serve them and move on, are you?" a colleague teased one afternoon as he watched Jason rush past an elderly couple. But instead of laughing along, Jason stopped in his track, feeling a flush of shame rise to his cheeks. As he approached the couple, he slowed his pace and put on a smile. "Good afternoon. How are you today?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. The couple exchanged surprised glances, their expressions shifting from uncertainty to warmth. "It's a lovely day, thank you," the woman replied, her smile wide. "We're just enjoying a little lunch together." Jason nodded, feeling the weight of their gaze. "Is there anything I can get for you? Perhaps a recommendation?" Their conversation unfolded naturally, and for the first time in a long while, Jason listened genuinely. He asked them about their lives, their stories, and in return, they shared laughter and memory. When he finally walked away, it felt like a small victory, a shift in perspective that he hadn't anticipated. Days turned into weeks, and gradually, the restaurant began to change. Patrons noticed the subtle shift in Jason's demeanor. He was more patient, more attentive. The atmosphere felt lighter, filled with laughter and exchanges that warmed the heart. Yet, within the confines of his mind, Walter's note remained a beacon of clarity. Every time he served an older patron, he recalled the old man's words, "Choose wisely." And for the first time, Jason realized that kindness wasn't just a fleeting act. It was a choice that could reshape his world and the lives of those around him. As he continued to embrace this changing mindset, he felt a sense of purpose blooming within him. Perhaps Walter's lesson was more profound than he had initially thought, and he was beginning to understand that true ambition lay not just in personal success, but in the connections he nurtured along the way. The familiar chime of the restaurant door announced Walter Harris's arrival, and he took a moment to soak in the ambiance that had once felt like a second home. The scent of home-cooked meals wafted in the air, mingling with laughter and clinking cutlery. This time, however, there was an undeniable shift in the atmosphere. The once indifferent staff now greeted him with genuine smile, and the chatter among patrons seemed infused with a newfound warmth. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. Subscribe now, leave a like, and pass this along to family and friends. Together, we can keep spreading hope. Jason, the young waiter, stood at the counter, his heart racing. He had spent days reflecting on Walter's note. Its simple yet profound message about kindness and patience had carved its way into his conscience. Today was a chance to make things right. As Walter settled into his usual corner table, Jason took a deep breath, wiping his clammy hands on his apron. He approached Walter with a sense of humility that was new to him. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harris," Jason began, his voice steadier than he anticipated. "I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry for how I treated you the last time you were here." Walter looked up, his blue eyes sparkling with a hint of surprise. "Jason," he replied warmly, "thank you for saying that. It takes a lot to admit when we've made a mistake." Jason shifted his weight nervously, eyes darting to the floor before returning to Walter's kind gaze. "I've been thinking about what you wrote. It really opened my eyes. I've been trying to be more patient with all the customers, especially the older ones. I realize now how important it is to treat everyone with respect." Walter nodded, a smile creeping across his face. "You know, Jason, it's never too late to learn something new. We all have our moment, but what matters is how we choose to grow from them." The young waiter felt a sense of relief wash over him. "I appreciate that, Mr. Harris. I really do. I wanted to make it up to you today. Can I get you your usual?" He gestured toward the menu. his eagerness palpable. Walter chuckled softly. "I'd love the meatloaf, just like always." He glanced around the restaurant, taking in the vibrant energy. "It seems the place has changed a bit since I was last here." "It has," Jason confirmed, his pride evident. "We've all been trying to create a better environment. I've noticed that everyone seems to be happier." He paused, then added, "It's amazing what a little kindness can do." As Jason turned to head to the kitchen, Walter called after him, "And don't forget to tell the chef I want extra gravy." Jason laughed, the sound echoing warmly in the restaurant. "You got it! Extra gravy! Coming right up." When Jason returned with the plate, he had taken extra care to make sure everything was perfect. The meatloaf was steaming, the mashed potatoes perfectly whipped, and the gravy glistened inviting. He placed the dish in front of Walter with a flourish. "Here you go, sir. Extra gravy, just like you ordered." Walter's eyes lit up. "You've outdone yourself, Jason. This looks delicious." "Thank you, Mr. Harris. I really wanted to make sure you had a great meal today." Jason's sincerity was palpable, and for the first time, he felt more than just a waiter. He felt like a part of something larger. As Walter took his first bite, a look of satisfaction crossed his face. "Ah, just as I remember. You know, there's something comforting about food that brings back memories." "What's your favorite memory?" Jason asked, intrigued. Walter paused, his fork hovering above his plate. "My late wife, Margaret, and I used to come here every Friday. It was our tradition. We'd share stories, laugh, and sometimes even argue over which dessert to order. She always won, of course." "I can imagine," Jason replied, leaning in. "It sounds like you two had a great connection." Walter smiled softly, nostalgia washing over him. "We did, and it's those moments of kindness and connection that stay with us. They're what make life worth living." In that instant, a silent understanding blossomed between them. The restaurant, once just a workplace for Jason and a place of solitude for Walter, transformed into a space where two generations met, learned, and grew together. The walls echoed with the laughter of patrons, but it was the bridge forming between the young waiter and the elderly veteran that truly defined the day. As the golden rays of the afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the modest restaurant, a sense of warmth enveloped the room, echoing the newfound spirit that had taken root within its walls. Jason busied himself with wiping down table, each stroke of the cloth a reminder of the transformation he had undergone since that fateful day when Walter's note had shaken him to his core. He had become an embodiment of patience and kindness, a stark contrast to his former self, and he couldn't help but feel a swell of pride as he observed the positive changes around him. "Hey, Jason!" Sarah called from the kitchen, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "Can you come here for a second?" Jason hurried to the kitchen, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Sarah stood by a large frame, a smile of satisfaction lighting up her face. Inside the frame was Walter's note, elegantly displayed for all to see. "I thought we should put this up front," she said, gesturing to the note. "It's a reminder for both our staff and customers about the importance of kindness. What do you think?" Jason's eyes widened as he read the words that had once ignited a flicker of change within him. "I love it," he replied earnestly. "It's perfect." As the weeks rolled on, the restaurant flourished, transforming into a haven of warmth and respect. The atmosphere was alive with laughter and genuine conversation, and patrons were treated with care, particularly the elderly, who now felt valued rather than dismissed. Walter had become a regular fixture, and with every visit, he and Jason forged a deeper bond, sharing stories and laughter over meal. One afternoon, as the two sat at a cozy corner table, Walter leaned in, his eyes twinkling with nostalgia. "You know, Jason," he began, his voice warm and inviting, "there's a story I've been meaning to share with you. It's about my late wife, Clara." Jason leaned forward, his interest piqued. "I'd love to hear it. What was she like?" Walter's expression softened, and he chuckled lightly, lost in the memory. "Clara was the kindest person I ever met. We met during the war, of all places. She was a nurse, and I was just a scared young soldier. She had this way of making everyone feel at ease, even in the worst of situations." "Sounds like she was a real hero," Jason remarked, his admiration evident. "Oh, she was," Walter affirmed, a hint of pride in his voice. "But it was her kindness that truly shaped our love. We spent our lives building a relationship founded on mutual respect and understanding. There was this little cafe we'd go to every Saturday, and we'd sit for hours just talking and laughing. It was our sanctuary, a place where we could escape the world. Jason listened intently, captivated by Walter's words. "What was your favorite memory together?" he asked. Genuinely curious, Walter chuckled again, the sound rich with affection. "There was one rainy afternoon when we decided to stay in. We made a pot of soup and spent the entire day playing cards. Clara was so competitive, and she would always tease me about my terrible poker face. We laughed until our sides hurt. That's how we were, always finding joy in the simplest of moments." Jason felt a lump form in his throat. "That sounds beautiful," he said softly. "It's clear you two had something special." "We did," Walter replied, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But the secret was always kindness. We listened to each other, respected each other's dreams, and lifted one another up. I think that's what kept our love alive through all the ups and downs." As the conversation continued, Jason found himself reflecting on his own life. The lessons Walter shared resonated deeply within him, and he realized that kindness was indeed a powerful force. It wasn't just about how one treated others, it was about creating genuine connections that could withstand the test of time. Walter smiled at Jason, sensing the depth of his thoughts. "You've got a good heart, Jason. Just remember to keep that kindness close, not just here, but everywhere you go." Jason nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility wash over him. "I will, Walter, I promise." As they continued to share stories and laughter, the restaurant hummed with life around them, filled with the scent of delicious food and the warmth of genuine connections. Each moment served as a reminder of the impact of kindness, not just within the walls of the restaurant, but in the world beyond. And in that shared understanding, Walter and Jason found something precious, a friendship that transcended their age difference, rooted in respect, and blossomed into something truly beautiful. If this video made you reflect, imagine what the next one will bring. Subscribe, like the video, and send it to those you hold dear. Let's keep the inspiration flowing. The restaurant buzzed with an air of anticipation as Sarah rounded up the staff for an important announcement. The walls, once adorned with simple decor, now echoed with laughter and warmth thanks to Walter's note and the subsequent changes in behavior among the staff. As the group gathered near the kitchen, Jason felt a flutter of nervous excitement in his stomach. He had seen the change in himself and the restaurant, but now they were about to be thrust into the limelight. "All right, everyone!" Sarah clapped her hands to grab their attention. "We have some exciting news. A local news station is coming to film a segment on our restaurant's transformation. They want to highlight our commitment to kindness and respect, especially how we've improved our service and atmosphere." A murmur of excitement rippled through the group. Jason shifted on his feet, his mind racing. He wanted to show the world how much he had changed, how he was no longer the impatient waiter dismissing customers with indifference. He thought of Walter and how their relationship had blossomed into a friendship that felt like a lifeline. "Jason, I want you to be a part of this," Sarah said, her eyes locking onto his. "You've made remarkable progress, and I think your story will resonate with the audience. It's important we show them how kindness can transform not just a restaurant, but people as well." Jason nodded, though an anxious knot formed in his stomach. "Sure, I'll do my best," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. As the day of filming approached, Jason practiced what he would say, rehearsing the moments he had shared with Walter, the lessons learned, and the kindness he now extended to all patrons. The thought of standing in front of a camera made him feel like a deer caught in headlights, but he was determined to convey the journey he had taken. On the day of the shoot, Walter arrived at the restaurant, a warm smile on his face that lit up the room. Dressed in a simple button-up shirt and slacks, he carried an air of dignity that commanded respect. Jason felt a swell of gratitude wash over him as he watched Walter mingle with the other customers, a gentle presence amidst the bustling activity. "Walter!" Jason called out, rushing over with a hint of enthusiasm that belied his earlier nerve. "I'm so glad you're here. Are you ready for today?" Walter chuckled softly, his blue eyes twinkling. "I've been looking forward to it. It's a wonderful thing you're doing, Jason. Remember, it's all about sharing our story." Jason nodded, taking a deep breath. "I just hope I can convey how much you've impacted my life. You've taught me so much about patience and kindness." Walter placed a reassuring hand on Jason's shoulder. "Just speak from the heart. That's all anyone needs to hear." As the cameras rolled and the crew set up, Jason felt a mix of anxiety and excitement bubbling within him. When the interview began, he found himself speaking candidly about his previous attitudes and the shift he had undergone. "I used to rush through my shift, treating customers as just another number," he admitted, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "But then I met Walter, a veteran who showed me the value of each person's story. He reminded me that every interaction is an opportunity to make someone's day better." Walter nodded along, his expression proud, as Jason continued. "It's not just about serving food, it's about connecting with people. I've learned that kindness doesn't cost a thing, and it can change lives." Throughout the interview, Walter shared his own experience, recounting moments from his life that resonated with the audience. He spoke of love, loss, and the importance of community, a narrative that captivated both the crew and the viewer. As the segment concluded, Jason felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. It wasn't just about the restaurant anymore, it was about the bond he had formed with Walter and the lessons that would last a lifetime. In a moment of sincerity, Walter turned to Jason, a grin tugging at the corners of his lips. "You've come a long way, my friend. I'm proud of you, and I'm excited to see where this journey takes you." "Thank you, Walter," Jason replied, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you." As the crew packed up and the restaurant returned to its usual rhythm, Jason knew that this day would be etched in his memory forever. Not just for the filming, but for the connection he had forged with Walter, a partnership rooted in kindness that had transformed both their lives for the better. As the cameras panned away, capturing the laughter and camaraderie in the restaurant, a woman burst through the entrance, her face a mixture of panic and determination. The clatter of cutlery and the soft background music faded into the background as all eyes turned to her. She approached Walter, her breath quickening as she called out, "Dad?" Walter's smile faltered, morphing into a look of disbelief. The warmth of the moment evaporated, replaced by a whirlwind of emotion. He squinted, trying to reconcile the face before him with the memories locked away in his heart. Is it really you?" he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, it's me. I'm so sorry I took so long to find you," she exclaimed, her voice shaking. "I've been searching for years. I heard about you through the stories at the restaurant. Your kindness, the way you treated everyone. I couldn't believe it when I found out you were here." Jason stood frozen for a moment, processing the scene unfolding before him. The transformation he had witnessed in Walter over the past weeks now seemed dwarfed by the gravity of this reunion. The restaurant, once a simple backdrop for their interactions, had become a stage for a life-altering moment. "Why didn't you reach out sooner?" Walter's voice trembled as tears welled in his eyes. The weight of decades apart settled heavily upon him. Each word felt like a bridge built over years of absence. "I didn't know how. I thought you'd never want to see me again after everything that happened," she replied, her voice cracking. "But I've changed. I've grown, and I've thought about you every day. I just needed to find you." Walter's heart ached at the sight of her, a woman who carried pieces of his past, a past filled with both joy and heartache. "You were my little girl," he murmured, stepping closer, the distance between them evaporating. "I always wanted to know you were okay." As he reached out, she fell into his arms, and the dam of emotions broke. Walter held her tightly, feeling the warmth of her presence, the connection that time had not severed. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he whispered, "I thought I'd lost you forever." Jason, standing a few feet away, felt a rush of emotions himself, witnessing the power of reconciliation. He understood now that the lesson of kindness extended far beyond the restaurant wall. It was a lifeline that could mend broken relationships. He stepped back slightly, giving them space, but his heart swelled with admiration for Walter's resilience. "I can't believe this is happening," Walter's daughter said, pulling back slightly to look into his eyes, still searching for the father she had missed for so long. "I've missed so much. I've wanted to tell you about my life, about everything." "Tell me," Walter urged, his voice steadying. "I want to hear every word." Their conversation flowed like a river unblocked after a long drought. Each story shared was a thread weaving their lives back together, filling the gaps left by years of silence. Jason quietly listened from the sidelines, his heart warming at the sight of their reunion. He felt a subtle shift in the atmosphere, as if the very air around them vibrated with the energy of hope and healing. "Do you remember the stories I used to read to you?" Walter asked, a smile breaking through the tears. She chuckled through her own tears. "Of course! You always made the characters come alive. I might have to start reading them again," he replied, his smile growing wider. As they continued to converse, Jason moved to the side of the restaurant, allowing the moment to breathe. He realized that the kindness Walter had shown him had ignited a ripple effect, a cascade of understanding that had now reached the depths of familial ties. This was not just a reunion, it was a testament to the enduring power of love, patience, and hope. Walter and his daughter embraced once more, the tears of joy mingling with laughter. In that precious moment, Jason understood that life's surprises could bring people together in the most unexpected ways, and that kindness could be the bridge that mends even the most fractured relationships. He quietly vowed to carry this lesson with him, not just as a waiter, but as a person who truly valued the connections we form in our lives. And as the restaurant buzzed with a renewed spirit, he knew that this day would mark the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Walter and his daughter, but for everyone touched by the magic of kindness shared within these walls. If you believe in second chances and the power of redemption, this playlist is made for you. Experience the most moving stories of elderly men, proving that kindness and humility always win. Watch now.